Jeremy, is that better? Is that better? Hello, hello.
Sounds good to me, Rich.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was on the wrong mic for a second. Mm. Did Blichter go to sleep or something? Let me see here.
I don't think that man sleeps.
Yeah, I know. That was a joke. How you guys doing? Good, good.
Doing well here. Just reading up on our last council feedback. We got a healthy debate to discuss in this town hall, I'm guessing.
Sure do. Wait.
Blichter's playing hooky.
I want to see Jimbo's questions. I'm waiting for that too, Jimbo.
Well, we can get started without Blichter if you guys are comfortable.
I'm fine. Is Kieran joining?
I'll ping him and see if I can get Blichter real quick.
It was on the calendar, but I'm not sure that he was able to confirm.
I think he was supposed to be, but if not.
Let me see. Give us 1 minute, everybody. I'll turn the music back on for you. All right. Well, we've put in the necessary pings and calls, so I'm sure these guys will show up. They just might be a little bit late. But yeah, welcome everybody. It's Governance Town Hall. We have the IMC up here right now. They just recently put out a proposal. What I guess it kind of came from the marketing sub-council as well, but a proposal regarding Wave 2 Illuvitar's pricing. So this town hall is kind of about that. I'm sure we can move on to other stuff as well, but we'll start with that first. Annie, JP, when you guys want to kick it off?
Yeah, I can kind of start. I can just try to provide a little bit more, unless Annie, you had something you wanted to say, but I can just kind of provide a little bit more color to the current situation.
Yeah, I think JP, maybe I'll do a quick positioning for the topic,
Yeah.
and then I'll let you jump into the marketing team feedback. So,
Okay.
firstly, I want to just welcome everyone from the community that's here. We're excited to see you guys coming out. I know, many of you may be here for Leroy, as you mentioned, Taylor, in the chat, but for those that aren't and those that aren't here for Squiz, we appreciate you all being here for governance discussions. It's a very much an important part of the DAO is community feedback. And as you guys have all seen over previous epochs, especially highly visible, highly critical topics like this, we're going to talk about with Illuvitar's Wave 2. We're going to talk about some other priorities for the remainder of the epoch. These sorts of topics, if we have 1,000 active community members, there's going to be at least 2,000 opinions to go around. And so a critical part of our governance process is getting that feedback from our community, right? And some of this is you asking questions of us and giving a chance for the council to explain what data we're looking at, what key topics we're trying to resolve and solve for in our proposals. And so I think a town hall comes at a good time for us to have the discussion. I also want to just highlight that this is really this is for sure the first town hall discussion we've had as the new IMC. This is the early days of feedback from the governance V2 process as well. And so I want to caveat this with the fact that anytime you move from a 5-person decision-making body based on the community feedback as we've had in past epochs to a closer to 20-person structure, you're going to have some growing pains along the way. And you're also going to have more opinions and more ideas that are brought in. And so I want to really highlight that this is an important benefit of GovV2, is that you as a community now have more individuals that are bringing ideas, bringing different perspectives to light for these discussions than before. What that means is that we're likely not as efficient in terms of turnaround time for specific decisions or IAPs, but the expectation is we should be much more effective at the end of the day because we have a broader perspective. And so a key approach from the IMC this epoch, as we've begun to get into the details, is really working with each of the specialized sub-councils to give them an opportunity to focus on what it is that they know best. And so what you've seen over the past few weeks and maybe a month and a half now with Illuvitar's Wave 2 and some of the other IAPs and ICCPs is we're working as a group to try and find broad consensus across the expertise in the different sub-councils. And with that in mind, that's going to be a slower going process. And it also means there's going to be more visibility in the community for some of these active discussions that are taking place. That said, I want to give JP and the marketing team by extension the opportunity to really focus on how they approached this question of what are Illuvitars, how are we positioning the product, and then based on that, what the pricing recommendation would be. That said, we know that there's different opinions, and that's okay. The goal is for us as a DAO to come to the right decision, both on product positioning and pricing and marketing. And so, with that said, I'll turn it over to JP after we go through some of the feedback for Wave 2 Illuvitars, which I know is a hot topic right now. I want to spend a few minutes and we'll highlight some of the key priorities for the remainder of the epoch that the IMC has given to each of the sub-councils. And then I think, Rich, if you've got any other general questions that have come in advance, or that pop in during, we'll be happy to answer those as well. So, JP, I'll maybe turn it over to you with that.
Thanks, Annie. No, I think that sets the stage very well. I want to start just by saying that this has been a very divisive kind of uh, discussion, right? I mean, like there are very much two camps and two schools of thought here, and so as Annie kind of noted, being able to address all of those different opinions with a larger group and sticking to not only traditional business value or business strategy, and also taking into account the dynamics of not only Web3 but Web2 as well, and trying to mix all of that together into one perfect solution, and at one point a perfect solution that we believe is scalable, for years to come. And I think kind of where we are now is trying to, first we're trying to determine, is this a Web3 focused product or a Web2 focused product? And there was a lot of debate about where we fall on that spectrum, and it can be a little bit of both. But primarily, the kind of consensus that we've reached, or the majority we've reached, is that at this time at least, this is primarily a Web3 product, and that it's too soon in the market cycle and the life cycle of Illuvium for this to be effectively marketed and sold to a Web2 audience. And will that change in the future? Probably. But what we're kind of discovering, and the rationale here, is that at least for Wave 2, where we will be most effective, and again, marketing oftentimes is measured by how successful your sale is, right? How successful your revenue is. It's not, the goal of marketing is not as much. And again, all of the sub councils kind of come together for a broader vision that achieves a, more complete kind of goal. But as far as marketing itself is concerned, our focus is not as much on sentiment. Our focus is more on the data, right? It's more on, what does the data tell us? What decisions can we make that are sound marketing decisions that will drive increased revenue? These are the things that marketing professionals think about. It's not so much how are people going to feel about it. It's more so, how can we drive the most revenue for the DAO? And so this is a challenging balance to strike, because we want to keep the community happy. We want to make sure that we're rewarding the community and early adopters, but at the same time, we're trying to do what's best for the business. And the business, the game, the studio, the DAO, traditional business practices apply there. And when we look at the numbers, the data is screaming at us one thing, and community sentiment is very loudly saying something, different than that. So it has been a challenge. I just want to start with that. I mean, I have, I believe, put out 2 or 3 proposals in the feedback and idea section that have been, polar opposites almost, to the sense of, is this drastically lower pricing? I mean, we've been all over the board. We've spent countless hours discussing this internally on the councils, as well as talking to the community. And the logical kind of path forward in our current position in this current market cycle is to collect more data. Like, that is what, from a business perspective, makes the most sense to do. And to do that, we're able to adjust the Wave 1 pricing to better reflect what the numbers actually told us, and then launch Wave 2 to collect more data. And that might mean that Wave 3 is a lower pricing, but if we shoot too far low on Wave 2, then it becomes much more difficult to correct on Wave 3 and raise prices potentially, right? So we have to be careful. It is an incredibly complex topic. I really do appreciate all of the passionate feedback from the community. Just know that this has not been a easy recommendation, but at the end of the day, the decision that we made was based on the expertise of people that their entire job is data analytics. Their entire job is looking at the numbers and making drawing conclusions about how to drive revenue based on that performance. And we have done that from a marketing perspective, and we believe that what's been presented here is what's best for the performance of the Wave 2 sale. Is it the model that's going to be best for Waves 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? I mean, probably not. I think as we get more Web 2 adoption and the market changes, this product is also going to evolve. But the recommendation that we've landed at for now is based on the current data that we have, and with the goal of collecting more data with this wave. So, I know that a lot of people want the pricing to be lower, and I get it, right? Like from a personal point of view, I would love to be able to stack up on discs at a lower price point, but there just isn't enough substantive data or even speculative data to suggest that we're able to increase the number of discs sold enough to justify lowering the price based on our current demographic and market conditions. So maybe I'll leave it there and give my peers here a chance to speak. I mean, again, this has been a topic that has been slingshotting around the different councils. Everyone is of their own opinion, and there is very limited consensus on this. So this discussion that we're having right now is really, we want to hear your feedback and your thoughts and your perspectives. But we also want you to understand that we're not making these recommendations lightly. We are trying to balance a lot of different things in terms of value, in terms of demographic, in terms of just the numbers that we currently have to base our decisions on. But with that said, yeah, Blichter, Caveman, Annie, if you guys want to kind of give your perspective, we can kind of go around the room. But I know even on the IMC level, this is something that we're not, it's not an easy majority consensus, right? I know that everyone here kind of has differently weighed opinions on this, so I'll kind of let it go around the room now.
I'll go and start. So when I look at this, I like to look at the secondary sales. And if we look at like Token Trove and you go up to like tier 4, you could pull up this nice Dash PFP I'm rocking right now. You can buy one of these for less than $10 already. And so if we start lowering the price even more, I could see potentially a lot of these PFPs being devalued substantially, and especially people who bought into Wave 1, that could be, having some substantial ramifications. So that's one thing I like to consider. The second one is for Wave 2. I know the opposition. I will also say I am supportive of this based on Perry and the data that he's pulled together. And with that being said, if we think of like the funnel of when Web2 gamers come to a game, and this is just my expectations of what I'm assuming will happen, is they're going to come looking for a free-to-play game. They're going to play the free-to-play game. If they like it, they'll start buying alluvials and other in-game assets to actually play the game. Once they start seeing all the other players out there rocking some cool NFT PFPs, that's when they're going to go, oh, I want one of those. Where can I get those? I imagine that they'll actually go to secondary first, buy some cheap ones until they're like, okay, actually I want to go into this. And then they start hearing about, these Illuvitar sales, Wave 3, whenever the next one's going to come out. Then they might jump in. But that's not for at least another wave. And I don't think that we're going to gain any traction from a Web 2 audience in this Wave 2. There just isn't a drive for them to come. It's just another NFT profile picture project. And I think that that devalues everything that we've already built with the Wave 1. And so that's why I support it. I do see total value in having a lower cost. And I wouldn't block that. And I don't think the Game Council would block that. I know we definitely have someone who's vocal against it. But we do think that there is value in the pricing that's been proposed in the data that's been backed by Perry. I'll let Annie and Blicker go.
Yeah, so maybe I'll hop in, Blichter. I'm not sure if you're trying to talk, but the general feedback that I want to make sure that the community understands is the data that we're looking at. is a multitude of things. The first is that we've considered in very great detail the price points for a number of relevant products. So we could send you tables of data that we've looked at for price points of trading card games and of various skins and other collections across Web 2 gaming. We've looked at price points for a number of PFP projects and other NFT, similarly gamified types of products like this that you see in the marketplace today. Literally dozens and dozens of price points there to evaluate, what is this product of Illuvitar's and what is it most similar to in terms of the comparisons here. So this is the first point that I would just highlight is that a big challenge with Illuvitar's is it doesn't neatly fit into a single box, right? It's not purely a collectibles card game like a Pokemon. It's not a PFP project in isolation. It's not a pure collectibles. It's not a skin, just directly like in CS:GO. It's something between all three of these. And ideally, it's the project that becomes your identity in the Illuvium ecosystem. And so this is one of the key points of data that we've looked at is just similar competitor products that are out there in the marketplace today. The other core piece of data, and this is thanks to Perry and the rest of the team that have done a lot of the analysis, is what is the relative take rates of standard versus mega discs, as well as the overall sales, including the sales trends during the window for alphas and then afterwards, right? And so based on this feedback, you've seen the adjustments in I think two main areas. The first one, and I think most of the community is pretty on board with this, is that the price premium for alphas made sense in wave one as the very first, as I've termed it, the alpha of alpha sale. In terms of future sales, it doesn't make sense to have that same 5x multiplier. And so I think this is a view that's pretty broadly shared by the community. That said, a key point for everyone, and this is myself included, that partook in the alpha sale, presumably we all recognize that there's value in having the original, again, alpha of alpha OG discs, whether you have an unopened disc or you have just the individual already opened Illuvitar bonded or not. There's value in those, right? And so I think it's certainly a valid position that wave one, whether you thought it was higher or lower, makes sense for us to reevaluate for future sales. And so I think in basically every proposal that you've seen going forward, unless there's one I don't recall, you've seen a pretty substantial drop in the alpha premium price for alphas versus non-alphas, right? And the goal here still is in any product, you're going to have a pretty heavy focus of customers that want to have the ability to differentiate. Illuvitar's offers that in spades. It gives you, all of the different variants of any individual Illuvitar and background and expression, as well as the ability to heavily customize. On top of that, the option of having, an alpha, if that's something that really appeals to you, gives us an option to sell. And look, most people may deem this as really a kind of a splurge or collectibles item that they decide, I just want to pick up one or two of these. Some people they may want to build an entire collection of those, right? But this gives you the option. There's nothing in terms of extra strength or power ratings in terms of the collections that really flows from this alpha tag. And so, again, if it's not something that appeals to you, totally okay, right? Then you probably are not the target audience for that product. But if you are someone that wants the best of the best and the most exclusive, we're catering to that desire. The other point, so alphas, I think we covered. The other point is the standard versus mega. I would say price ratio and price multiplier between the two. And the key point of data that Perry brought to us was over the course of the sale, how did sales of of standards versus mega discs actually evolve, right? We don't know necessarily based on either the dollar amount or the number of discs that we sold of standard versus megas. What is the exact right price point? But in terms of anecdotally, in terms of the data, the relative sales of standard to mega discs moved over time during the sale during wave one, and so it pretty clearly showed a trend line that the alphas were being undervalued. And again, you're welcome to come look at the data in terms of overall sales per day. It was volatile, of course, as you would expect during a long extended run like this with pretty high swings in number of discs that were purchased per day. But over time, the data was telling us that standards need to be reduced in price relative to megas, or megas need to be increased a bit relative to standards. We had a lot of discussion on this in all of the councils. We also need to think about the weight of accessories over time and the value of those as future waves within set one progress. That said, these were the two core data points that we saw, and I think what you're going to see in the proposal that marketing has put forward. Blichter, maybe I'll turn over to you for any thoughts on your side right now.
Yeah, for sure. So, I know it's been alluded to a little bit, but obviously we're not always in agreement on everything. But I guess to be upfront about it, personally, I'm not in favor of this proposal, but I don't think that's because it doesn't have some validity. I think there's some fair points about it, and a lot of this, as Annie and JP and Caveman have alluded to, a lot of this is about how we're positioning this product going into the future, and who is this product for, right? And one of the points that I don't think I necessarily heard covered, it was maybe covered a little bit, but Beyond is not the product that's going to onboard Web 2 into our ecosystem, right? I mean, Beyond is a lot different than a lot of other NFT profile picture products, but it's still, at its core, it's still an NFT profile picture product. Obviously, Web 2 has some aversion to that kind of thing, and so Beyond is not, it's not the project that's going to slingshot us into the mainstream, right? And so positioning it towards a Web 2 audience, in order to make that cheap enough, palatable enough for a Web 2 audience, it would have to be significantly cheaper than what Wave 1 was selling for. And even then, there's no real guarantee of success. As has been mentioned, there's no data indicating that Web 2 would jump all over this product if we were to reduce the prices a bunch, right? So even though I don't necessarily agree with the current proposal, I think there's a lot of validity to some of the points. Yeah, I think that may actually be all that I have to add that hasn't been mentioned before by Annie, JP, and Caveman. So I guess I would just ask people to think this over and consider it and think about who is this product for and how can we make it appropriate for that audience.
Yeah, and Blichter, this was a really good point. The what I shared in the council roundtable chat is I think there's really three directions that we can go with Illuvatars as a product, and I don't think any of those is wrong per se. They're just different tracks that we can take as a project. The first one with a higher, let's say the highest of the price points, is really targeting this towards Web3 collectors, speculators, traders, whatever you want to call and consider that group. That's really targeted towards individuals that want to collect. They want to build out a virtual, a virtual portfolio of assets in Illuvium. And if we go that route, you're not going to really be appealing to that group if you are selling discs for $1 or $2. It's just not. It's not a relevant product for someone in that position. Another option is that you can really target just, I'm going to say just like overall mainstream adoption in terms of, Web 2 gamers, and say like, look, we want this to be as accessible as possible, reasonably, and you can have a really, really low price point. There was some discussion about this in some of the proposals that we looked at. And if you take that route, again, you're not going to be appealing to Web3 folks generally, but you're much more going to appeal to folks as the main games get launched and we have open beta, and they say, hey, I can pick up a cosmetic skin, for pretty cheap on in terms of a disc along the way. And for people that want to build out a big collection, they can do so with a pretty low barrier to entry, right? Which gives us a lot of onboarding opportunities into the ecosystem. And this was one of the product positionings that we discussed, was maybe Illuvitar should be a sort of top of the funnel, easy access point in. Web2 folks know and understand cosmetics. The third is really a kind of a try to split the difference, where you put the price point in between the two groups, and your goal is to have it be still an overall appealing product for those that want to have a collection that they feel like has value, and there's some cost to build it up, but also is not going to scare Web2 folks away. And so I think there's not a right answer though, because each one of those has some risks, and it has a clear positive and negative. So just for the community, I think if you want to consider the different proposals, view them in that light, and I think you'll better understand the overall differences that we've seen.
All right. Well, we got Kieran here now. How you doing, Kieran?
Hey guys, sorry I'm late. How's it going?
Not bad. Everyone's just kind of giving their reasoning currently about they just released the proposal for Illuvitar's prices for Wave 2. So everyone was kind of giving out their points about the proposal, essentially.
Got it.
Do you want to say anything about it to start? I mean, they basically just finished. Each of them had something to say.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know if I'm going to be driving home the same point as some of the others, just because I only just got on the call. But for me, I think it was pretty clear that alphas were well overpriced, and for that reason, that was the first thing that we worked on, and internally, everyone agreed on that. The council certainly agreed on that, and so I think at the new price point, we're in a pretty decent place now. I think as well, changing it to a more scalable model in a 24-hour sale format makes sense. The goal of this is always to get more and more players in each wave, and if we do keep it at a level where there's only a certain amount, I feel like we're going to continue to have to increase that amount. And the first thing that I said to the council and to the guys internally is, we need to standardize this product. It needs to look like it is something that fits the product market, and if there is if the market is going strong, or if the market is taking a bit of a dip, we're not jumping in and saying, hey, and this goes for all of the parameters in the sale. We're not increasing or decreasing them based on the market sentiment. And so I think having that short period but making it unlimited makes sense for the alphas, definitely. But yeah, the pricing needed to change. So the reduction that we put forward makes sense to me. I think it's a lot more accessible for some people. But again, it's a product that you don't need to purchase. It's for those that really want to flex and say, hey, I got something super rare, and it's also an alpha, giving it that amplification that some people want. I certainly have gone back into my own collection, and you filter things out by alpha, and I don't know, it makes it a little bit cooler to have something that's rare and then something that's super rare, with that alpha. So that's what we decided to do with the alphas, and I think that makes sense. And then we had a lot of discussion around the standards and the megas, the non-alphas, and I think we got to a decent point. It's not as low as what it was in the initial proposal. I think that the marketing team distributed to the community, and the reason is we went back and forth on this. Like, as I think Annie was just explaining, we were thinking, is it something that we're targeting literal Web 2 gamers on? And if that's the case, are we still even out of their price point by having it at $5 and $20? Because can you really associate a mega disc with, say, like an indie game on Steam or something like that? And in my opinion, I think the Web 2 gamer is just going to go for that title on Steam or whatever it might be, just purely because this is a game of chance, it's speculation. You're not just buying into Illuvitar's and playing in Illuvium Beyond purely for the fun. I think if it was a TCG, I would definitely agree. Even though, as most of you know, I'm a massive player in Beyond. I love it. I'm really, really addicted. I can't wait until Wave 2 starts. But I think it's a very different product to me going and playing League of Legends for 3-4 hours in a day. I think they're positioned more so, and this could potentially change, and we should be open to changing with it. But I truly believe that this product is positioned it's focused on Web3 people. The original idea of Illuvitar's was to tap into those NFT that are out there where people are paying 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 at one stage ETH for a single NFT. And obviously we've gone way away from that, and I think there's definitely a position for an NFT project like Illuvitar's in that space as well, where it's much more at the affordable end. But I don't think we're positioning this product, and I don't think the 10,000 people that have started playing this game are sitting here saying, I'm not going to play Dota today, or I'm not going onto my PlayStation or Xbox. I'm going to start opening discs. I think it's just a totally different product. That they might also be a gamer, but I think they're also looking at speculation and some of the data of like what's rare, what's going to go up in value, and of course as well, trying to finish achievements, and now additionally with the unlocks where you can get in-game cosmetics and stuff like that. That's further gonna increase the amount of people that are trying to unlock these things. And so that's why we've gone back to a slight reduction in standards, and we've kept megas the same, because we feel like the sale was in wave 1 was pretty successful, and I don't think a slight reduction in price like we had previously proposed is really going to make the difference of people who weren't playing to to saying, you know what, now that I'm saving a little bit on this, I'm going to jump in. I just think that they're two different audiences, and you hear it. There are people that have really made it clear, even people in the council, as we're talking, you know, the community council, I think there's only 4 in that community that actually play the game. Sorry, 1 out of 5 that actually play the game, and they're like, you know, we're gamers. We're more into the thrill of competing in an active live game. This is not really for us, and that's okay. And so, if this pricing adjustment that marketing proposed was going to all of a sudden get us to like 100,000 players, I'd be all for it. I would say, I think this is going to be much better. There's going to be so many more people collecting, but I don't think it's going to do that. And I think overall, it's just potentially going to reduce the sales that come in. And so that's my explanation on the pricing. Now, as well, we've gone and tweaked the drop rates. I think this as a whole is going to make everything better. We talked about even reducing or increasing the drop rates for tier 5s, but I don't know. There's for me, and again, I'm highly biased. I've got something like 6 Ramfires. I use a very public wallet. You can all see that, and I like the idea that they're super scarce. You know, so for me, I didn't want us to change that drop rate of the tier 5. Having said that, will it make it a better experience for the drop rates of tier 1s to go down, and then tier 2 to tier 4, that mid tier stuff to be a little bit more common? Yes, I think that'll be really good. If someone was going to pull a tier 1 and all of a sudden they get a tier 2, and if they're going to pull a tier 2 and they get a tier 3, that's going to make someone go, yeah, like I'm really pumped about that, and I'm excited. So I think while we're also reducing the pricing and we're increasing the drop rates of those mid tiers, that's super awesome. Now, again, just to reiterate, the reason we didn't do those tier 5s is we want them to be super rare. We want the people that get them to, and yes, it does talk to the whales and that kind of stuff. But the question that we asked is, if we made it much easier for people to get Ramfires, I think I pulled something like 9. Now, I would have put 250K into Illuviums, and my point was, if I get to a point where I've spent, you know, 150 grand and I've already pulled 14 Ramfires, am I going to keep going? I mean, I'm a little bit crazy, so probably, but at the same time, probably less so, right? So I didn't see any reason or justification for us reducing those top tiers. And yeah, so I think I know that was a bit of a rant, but this has been going on for, oh God, it's got to be nearly 2 months now where we've been talking about all these changes. So that's where I'm at. Obviously, I'm only one person. I haven't heard what, and I'll say this as well. It's not, you know, there are still some other people on the council that think a little bit differently, and you know, there's been some agree to disagree conversations and stuff like this. So I'm just one person. At the end of the day, I think the community needs to be heard on this, and that's why we wanted to throw it over to you guys. So I'm just really keen to see, based on the rationale that I just gave, where are you guys at personally?
Do we want to bring some people up? I know a couple people had questions. Is anybody interested in coming up and asking? Let's see here. We had Vetemor with a question. Does anybody have anything regarding what Kieran just said? I guess like your arguments against it, for it. Nobody wants to come up and talk. That's fine. Vetemor, we can just go with Vetemor's question. He asked, you make a good point about pricing for Web 2 and beyond. Where would you price Overworld and Arena, and who would your target primarily if it was all up to you? Target audience be?
I think we need to strike a balance between Web 2 and Web 3, but I think the balancing act will be done through the pricing pool. And there's talk about right now we're doing a proof of concept of what that pricing solution is going to be, and not so much the solution, more the mechanism. And I think that just inherently is going to balance out the system a lot. So for me, it definitely needs to be accessible for Web 2, but it's a very, very similar conversation. And I know Aaron and Ben and a lot of those guys are more on the side of it has to be priced in for Web 2, and it needs to be super accessible, and it cannot be this huge barrier to entry. And I agree with that. I think that totally makes sense. But I will be open with you guys that there is a small part of me that thinks, what if we're still too early and it still takes a very, very long time for us to for not even us, for the industry to get over the idea of NFTs inside of games. And it's a little 5% bugbear that sits there in the back of my mind. And if that's the case, is it kind of crazy to think about a Ramfire being able to be caught for $250? Like it does that make sense? And I know it would, if you're talking like Magic or whatever, you want to be able to capture you want to be able to have a decent deck for like $500. But I don't know. In my mind, having a Ramfire that cheap, and I've been polluted with being inside of Web 3 and seeing the pricing that goes on here. It does seem a little bit cheap. So I don't know. I will that up to the game design, whatever they think. But yeah, that's kind of my thought process. And over time, it's going to naturally decrease or increase the cost of fuel to go into going to have an effect on that secondary set, what people position different characters for. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. I'm not as I'm not going to sit here and think we should. I'm definitely going to give my thoughts, but yeah, there's game designers in the team that have a much better idea.
Yeah, and Kieran, I think your feedback's very appropriate too in terms of the secondary pricing. No matter what we would want to do, the secondary market for any of these NFTs, be they Illuvatars, a blazing hollow Ramfire Illuvatar, or the Illuvias themselves when the main game comes out, those secondary market prices are almost completely out of our control, right? And it's the same thing. And for anyone that knows, like if you play World of Warcraft, you can put a value on any legendary or epic drop in game. You're gonna have runs that you can effectively, for those that don't know, most of the meta in World of Warcraft now is you're gonna pay to go on raids and you're going to basically just buy your way into an individual item through bidding. That's the most common approach now. And so if you assume that you can put an actual dollar value on gold in game, which you of course can, because many folks actually will buy in-game currency with real world dollars, you can put a price on any of the in-game assets, and many of those are going to go for hundreds or thousands of dollars, especially if they're, legendary or one of one or incredibly rare, teardrops that make your particular build super strong. It's going to be the same thing here. Just we don't make you go, bend around backwards to actually find that price discovery and, risk your account being banned and everything else. So I think secondary market is secondary market no matter what. In terms of the general positioning, my preference would be that we as a community are and as a project are making it so that the game is appealing, and even for a pretty reasonable entry price, folks can get in that's comparable to be able to play in the overworld to go catch some Illuvitars, or maybe you're more of an arena player, you don't want to go in the overworld, but you would rather just basically build your deck, like go do so on the secondary marketplace, no problem, so that you have a chance to play the game, and it doesn't feel like you're being priced out because this is a crazy expensive Web3 game that isn't able to appeal to you. I think you want it to be relatively equivalently positioned to similar top tier games in Web2. But then, once you get items, be they in-game items, or be they alluvials, or be they illuvitars, whatever those might be, you then also have the added advantage of ownership of those assets, and you can trade and swap them as you want.
Oops, I was muted there for a second. Ricky Tan was wondering, you done, Annie? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off if you were.
No, I'm good. Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, Ricky was just wondering what, I guess, your guys' thoughts on the feedback so far on the idea in the Ideas channel. I mean, currently it's sitting at like 17 down votes and 9 up votes. Actually, one less because I'm on both of those.
So I'm just quickly catching up now, but look, I mean, the first thing that I'll say is we went out probably prematurely, and I've chatted to the different councils about this, but we went out to the community and said, hey, this is what we're thinking. This is a proposal, and obviously the new proposal that we've sent out is at higher pricing. So the initial knee-jerk reaction is always going to be, now you're increasing the price. I don't like that, right? Now, when you really start drilling into it, and obviously I'm not going to go back into all of my rationale that I just put forward for why we should do this pricing, but when you really look at it, the biggest thing here, and trust me when I say this, I want this product to be standardized. I think even inside of Web3, where things are very dynamic, they're always moving, I don't think it looks good us changing the pricing or the structure constantly to fit the market, right? That doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't feel right, and I don't think we should do that. Having said that, if right now this product is positioned at Web3 people that are used to prices that are much, 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 much higher than this, my thoughts are that the barrier to entry is actually really, really low. And I don't see the thing that really, really got me is a lot of the arguments were, hey, but if people see these prices and they're from Web 2, they're going to look at it and be like, what the hell? I'm completely off this. This doesn't make sense. I'm out, right? And the same argument, and that makes sense, right, to a certain point. And the same argument can be made for people in Web3. If you're a Bored Apes owner and let's say the prices of tier 5s go down by 50%, which would likely happen with the new pricing structure that comes out. There'll be more people who can buy discs in wave 2. The rarities are going to go up, so there's going to be more of the higher range stuff. Obviously not the tier 5s because they're not being changed, but there's going to be more buying power in the market, and so theoretically people are able to buy double the amount of discs. So therefore I think that the pricing of that top band is going to go down. If you're a Bored Ape owner or an Azuki owner or a Doodles owner and you're sitting on an NFT that is valued at, say, 15, 20 ETH, are you really going to care when you look at a project that has predominantly stuff priced under an ETH? Probably not, right? The speculators out there, they're going to look at it and think, there's not enough potential price appreciation if the top rarest band stuff is going for 2-3 ETH if they've got really good backgrounds and stuff like that. It loses its appeal. Now my thing is, even if we look at this right now, number one, we all need to agree that there aren't and there won't be, at least for the next 5 months until we have the open beta, there really aren't that many Web 2 gamers, right? And yes, there are obviously some. I'm not sitting here saying that there's none, but there aren't a lot, right? Maybe it's 10, 15% that are like, I don't really care about crypto, but I care about I care about gaming and I'm waiting for the game, right? But we would be alienating, theoretically, 85% of our market right now, and that is those 10,000 people. Now, my thing is, we've got 1 million people, maybe 2 million people that are inside of this NFT market that are speculators that are looking for different projects to jump into, and we won't have any product to appeal to them. So, which is even more scary when you think about the next 5 months, potentially in the next 2 waves. If we don't have a product that is going to appeal to those people that are here now, that are ready to spend money, then what product are we going to have to generate revenue? That's where my head goes to. So positioning Illuvitas and Illuvium Beyond as a product that is premium, that is outside, like it is, that's why it's called Beyond, that is outside of the typical gaming ecosystem. And again, at least for now, I think, if in 12 months, 2 years, the council voted on a community proposal to turn it into a TCG, that's when we could change things and make the barrier to entry lower. And I have different ideas of how it could be like a slightly different product to not devalue the old Illuvitas. But if we were to go and do that, then that's fine. But right now, not having a product that we can advertise to that NFT crowd, which is, again, the initial intention of the idea, that scares me. And if, on the flip side, there was this huge market where I was thinking, well, you know what, even if it takes 3 or 4 months, after that time, we're going to have a massive funnel of Web 2 users come in. They're going to be thinking, yeah, I'm going to go and buy packs for $20 if they want to buy a mega disc, and they're going to go and buy 20 of them. I just don't think that's the conversion path that these Web 2 gamers are going to take, right? Like, I think NFTs inside of games is a big enough hurdle for them to get over, but NFTs inside of a speculative product that is, positioned much higher than what games typically cost, that's just an even bigger hurdle, right? And so my preference would be that we keep this as our high-end crypto NFT based project that is tapping into those million plus people that are collecting here right now, and have the other 3 games as the way to onboard people. It's free to play. You can get used to it. You don't need to have a wallet. When you start talking about to someone, well, you know how we've gone to all this effort in the other 3 games, and to not have a wallet and not need to go through that onboarding process of going to Uniswap or SushiSwap or an exchange or whatever to go and buy a token to get into an ecosystem. We've gone through all of this stuff to make it a seamless experience. And then all of a sudden we just don't have that in Illuvium Beyond. And it's like, oh, if you want to jump into this, yeah, we're pricing cheap, but you also need to have X, Y, Z things. It's all of a sudden it's been exposed as not that tool that people think it's going to be, where it's like, oh, get in, it's a low price point. This, you might see an Illuvitar first, and that's why you're going to jump into our main games. It's not a funnel for people to jump into our main games. It's the opposite. It's for people to be playing our games, start collecting NFTs, and then go, wow, I actually see the difference. There's this open marketplace on this Illuvidex where I'm getting the value of NFTs now. It's making sense to me. Oh, now I'll jump into this more premium product where, hey, that's crazy. A Ramfire did just sell for $30,000, but I get that now because I've been exposed to this initial experience of, yes, jumped in, didn't need a wallet, was free to play. They held my assets for me. Oh, okay, now I can see that I can transfer my assets across. Now I've got a wallet. Oh, those assets actually have value. That some of the free to play assets, it's only a small amount of value, but what if I got something that was a higher tier, like a tier 1 or a tier 2? And all of a sudden, that is the way that they get exposed to crypto. Then those people are NFT people then. So it doesn't seem crazy to see a Ramfire sell on an Illuvitar Ramfire to sell on the marketplace for 30 grand. And that's I guess my point. And it took me a while to get to this point. I was going back and forth. I actually suggested something even more aggressive where I said $2 for the standards and $10 for the megas if we really want to try and get Web 2 people in. Then I thought about that and I was like, it still doesn't get them in, right? You can put it at $1 and $5 and it still doesn't get them in, because it's an alien concept to think that these things aren't attached to a game. The utility is collecting things, and yes, there's achievements, and you can get things that there are some collections where you can get an in-game achievement that unlocks something in the main games, but it's still going to be like, holy shit, why are these guys paying so much for these things, in my opinion, until you get it, until you get the whole Web3 ethos, which, whether we like it or not, is more about speculation. And so, as I said, it took me a long, long, long time to get here. It's a discussion for the last 4 to 6 weeks. I get that the initial knee jerk is, this is bad, pricing has gone up. It makes sense to me. Everyone wants to be able to buy more. I want to be able to buy more, right? But when I take my selfish hat off, where I'm like, okay, take me out of the equation personally, what's best for the DAO? And I think in this case, especially because we're filling up a safety pool now, but I think even second to that, when we finish filling that up, and it's very, very close, it will start to be distributed, which is going to be super positive for all those people that are token holders out there. Not only are you going to start receiving distributions, but you're going to start seeing the DAO use that pool to buy back the token, which is really, really cool. So I think overall, keeping it at a price point where if we didn't talk about this pricing, I think for the most part, most of the players in Beyond would have been would have given you the feedback that it makes sense, it's fine. Bought a few discs. Pricing is pretty normal. It's actually really accessible compared to other collections in the NFT space. That's where I would go to, and that's why I've been a big advocate to mostly keep the pricing the same for these standards.
If I can jump in here for a second, thanks, Kieran, for sharing all your information there. I'm curious if we can just poll the audience right now. We've got 48 members in here that are engaged. You guys are here to listen. I just posted in the chat a quick poll. Do you agree that it should be either positioned for Web 2 or Web 3 game? And so if you go into the text chat here, click on my message and then go to the thing right there. Just emoji that real quick, and let's see if we're coming to that. I think that we've talked it back and forth. These arguments have persisted, and let's just gauge this out. We have 48 people. If we could all just do that real quick and see where everyone's sitting there.
Sorry, I can't see your poll here.
I just linked it in there. Yeah.
And what I'll propose is, if it's still very divisive, which I think it's going to be, it's 12, 13, it's still climbing. I think we potentially need to just take this back and talk about it internally some more instead of trying to debate it here. What are your thoughts on that, Kieran, and the rest of the IMC?
Sorry, you're saying debate it further?
I'm just saying, like, since it seems that we still cannot have a clear pointed, like, are we redirecting Illuvatars towards Web 2 or are we directing it towards Web 3? Perhaps this is something that we should just bring back within the councils and try to rediscuss. That's just what I'm thinking. Just looking at this.
Yeah. I mean, whenever we've gotten to this point, we've actually just put it back on the community and said,
okay,
you know what, you guys vote on it as a whole, and so I mean, it's 18-18 right now. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, I want to. If someone understands that it is targeted to Web 3 and they were going to be able to go and buy $500 worth of Illuvatars in Wave 2, and if they said that it was going to be, if their answer could be that I think it's targeted at Web 2, and if that helps their cause to be able to get up to $1,000 in or $700 of purchases, I don't know. I think it creates some bias there. I'm actually pretty surprised that it is as even as it is, because what you are basically saying is, no, charge us more, which is a very, very hard concept to digest for people. And as I said, I'm the exact same, right? Like, I would love to be able to buy the exact same amount of stuff for cheaper, but I just know that that's not in the best interest of the DAO. And I genuinely don't think that if we had have asked this prior to the pricing being proposed and we gave our reasons about the product and whatever, I honestly don't think it would be as even. I think a lot of people would say, you know what, this is a pretty crazy product. You do need a wallet. Like, there are and there's just in no way, shape, or form with so many sales going over $1,000, $2,000 for something that isn't inside of a game. Like, I get that CS:GO skins and stuff like that, but you can't even use it. Like, in the first wave, there were no collection unlocks, and these things were going for stupidly high prices. And the reason is because it makes sense to Web3 people. I just don't think when you truly be honest that we can sit here and say, you know what, it is a Web 2 product. I just don't.
I'm curious looking back at this. The original intent of having the alphas versus non-alphas was so that we could potentially target both audiences. How do you feel about that in its current state? I mean, obviously.
I don't think that that was never the intention for me. The
Okay,
intention
it wasn't.
No, the intention for me was that, like, you got to understand, when I ideated this whole concept of Illuvitas, never in my like that we actually had the people. The reason that Aaron doesn't play this, the reason that Ben doesn't play this, like any of the true gaming only people on the project that don't care about crypto, and they like the fact that there's governance and there's ownership and stuff like that, but fundamentally they like gaming. They're not playing it. Whereas if you go and ask someone like Rich, he's like, get me into wave 2 immediately. I don't care if it's me double, I'll be here, right? Like that sort of mentality is very, very Web 3. And so the initial thing was I saw a market that was blowing up, right? And I would have Aaron say, dude, like, how bad is our marketing? You've got Bored Apes that is killing it, and no one knows about us. And it used to piss me right off. I would be like, dude, okay, first of all, tons of people know about us. But second of all, we don't have any NFTs. We don't have any product, right? Like all these people care about, and I'm one of them, is being able to buy something and have speculation of, will this thing go up, right? It's like a trade. It's an addiction. It's something that we were not even in the ballpark, right? We couldn't even play with that community of people, and it went from 50,000 to 100,000 to 500,000 to at one point there was like 20 million. And now I'm saying there's still an active community there of probably 1 million plus. And that's the whole reason that this product existed before Roger got his hands on it, was to appeal to those people. So we could say, hey, you can speculate on this. No, it doesn't have anything to do with the game because we don't want to sell in-game NFTs and stuff like that prior, because we want it to be balanced. And I think very, very strongly about that, always have. But this was a marketing ploy for us to be able to tap into those communities that are spending millions of dollars and bring it to the people that are inside of this DAO. Not a cash grab where it's like, oh, the Illuvium Labs is going to take all of this money. It was designed to tap into those people, to give back to the people who are waiting for the games, right? Because they're not going to care about this product, but all of these other people will, right? Now, with that in mind, that is why I feel so strongly that this product is not designed to be mainstream gaming. And I get that we changed it, but I think we got to a happy medium by going with Illuvium Beyond, where it's not just a profile picture. We accept that our community is a lot different to most Web3 communities, and we do have a mix of true gamers in here that want the feeling of collections and achievements and different stuff like that. And that's why we came out with Illuvium Beyond, and I thought, yep, this is going to be great. This will appeal to both. There'll be those people who want to come in and spend $500,000 on this project because they want to buy up all the rare stuff, and they know that by wave 6, they're going to go up in value, or that's what they're hoping for. But there's also going to be the people that like collecting things like Pokemon cards and Magic cards that are much more accessible than where they were going to be positioned at prior. But at no stage, even close, was I thinking when we ideated this product, hey, let's go and get a random guy on the street that plays Counter-Strike to buy into these things. So to
I
go
am
back to your point, the alphas were positioned to be like the mega flex inside of the Web3 space, and the non-alphas were designed to be, hey, if you just want to play this game and you get NFTs, then don't worry about the alphas, you know?
Yeah.
I'm looking for any clear questions in the comments too. So
Well, I have nothing else to say on that topic. Does anyone else from the council have? Otherwise, I think we let it sit for the 14 days, see what the community, voices, and then see if that moves forward or if we have to take it back. What are we thinking there?
Victor, Annie?
Yeah, so the only other topic that I mentioned that I think bears some sharing today is we did as an IMC over the last couple of meetings have some discussions around priorities for this epoch. I think this was it was at least a comment. I don't know if it was a question in the chat, but there were some folks that were just interested in other general topics that are ongoing and state of game development and so forth. So, Kieran, maybe I'll run through some of the topics. If there's anything that you did want to share as far as development progress, we had one. It wasn't a specific question, but just general request for any information that you can share in here. But as far as the key topics that have been identified as priorities for the sub-DAOs, one big advantage of having the larger councils this epoch is frankly we have a lot more people that can go work on behalf of the DAO. And so we've given tasks to ourselves as individual sub-councils for topics that need to be addressed. A number of these are points around the full sustainable implementation of GovV2. Some of them are points around game launch activities to make sure that we're prepared as we get closer to that towards the end of this calendar year. And some of these are just general, I would say, pain points that we've been experiencing in governance in general. So a few of the key topics, and I'm not going to list all of them off. That's going to be super boring. But if you are interested, go ahead and check out the IMC meeting agenda from July 6th. Rich, I'm not sure if maybe we can just get a link to it in the chat. That would be great. But in here, we've got a list of the priorities that were identified for each sub-council. So topics you're going to see out there are things like the trading blackout, ICCP for council members, topics like how do we better handle onboarding of council members for the next epoch from a governance standpoint. On the strategy sub-council side, topics like post-yield liquidity, handling the yield farming activities, and how we're going to transition that over the next months. The fuel pool has probably been, aside from Illuvitar's here, the most discussed topic on the strategy sub-council thus far, and will continue to be as we identify how that core mechanic integrates price points and framework, as Kieran alluded to, that we've been in a lot of discussions with the team on how we can implement the appropriate fuel pool pricing, as well as the actual price points and production capabilities of the land plots. And IAP routing processes. From the gaming sub-council side, really the question of how we handle game-specific feedback, balancing questions, new game features, quality of life improvements. What does that actually look like? We don't really have a good model in Web 2 to follow for how a community-based council like this should interact with a game development studio like Illuvium Labs. And so there are, I think, some decent examples, but nothing to the extent that has this level of power and responsibility that our sub-council structure does. And then on the marketing side, topics like how we actually handle the onboarding of different types of media to assist players that are coming into the ecosystem, content creator support, how that structure should fit. And then maybe most critically, the overall go-to-market strategy, as we've talked about in here some for Web 2 and more mainstream adoption versus Web 3 community members. Those are the types of topics that we've been wrestling with in a lot of the sub-councils. I know we've had some questions in what topics are being addressed. And so any of those points that are not actively in discussions for IAPs and ICCPs, we as the IMC and as each sub-council have taken it upon ourselves to make sure that those get addressed this epoch. So overall, those are going to give you the key the key points that we're focusing on moving forward this epoch. Obviously, there will be others along the way, as you're seeing here. But I wanted to run through those and make sure that all of you that are very active in the community, that have come out to hear the feedback in the town hall, know these are some of the key points that are being addressed going forward.
Vetemor's question is around GameStop. If we're not targeting Web 2, then why GameStop for the promo disc? Kieran?
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm
You're fine.
just going back through the comments. What was that regarding GameStop?
He was saying if we're not trying to target Web 2, then why GameStop?
So that's an interesting one, right? So GameStop, obviously, they've got their own Web3 marketplace, and I think we're still, and I'm not going to sit here and say that we're not going after brands that haven't delved into Web3 yet, and so their communities are already primed to be marketed to for another NFT project, because that's not true. But I think primarily what we're trying to do there is tap into the psychology of, I like this brand and I also like crypto, right? I think we've seen time and time and time again the backlash from these companies coming out and saying, hey, we're selling an NFT collection, and the people that aren't in Web3 say, bad, why are you going into this? Don't do that. And then the people that are in Web3 that think, hey, I think Nike's a pretty cool brand, they're the ones who are buying into it. So don't think of our marketing partnerships as a way to convert Web2 users into Illuvatars. It's more giving additional reason to people who were going to buy Illuvatars, or that were inside of that NFT market, that those million plus people that I'm talking about, and saying as well, you really love this brand, or you really love this sporting team, or you really love this esports team, or whatever it might be, and for that reason, I'm going to go double hard on this collection.
And I will say, as I said in the chat, GameStop is kind of pivoting towards Web3. Honestly, with the new Web3 player they're coming out with, the launcher. So they are making changes. Any other questions that I missed over here? Can we cover some other topics? You guys got a little bit of time to cover some other topics? I have some other questions, at least. What time is it? We've already gone a little bit over. Doesn't seem like... Okay, well, here's a question generally for like everyone in the IMC. We'll kind of move on. It doesn't seem like anyone else has any questions right here. But Tailless asked, you guys can hear me, right? Yeah. Within the last week, Aaron has said that there won't be any game cutscenes in the overworld. Would IMC members consider the lack of in-game cutscenes a quality that will hinder the game from becoming AAA in the minds of mainstream gamers? Do you need those high quality cutscenes and all that in your game to make sure it's AAA?
And are you directing that to all of us, Rich?
Yeah, it was Taylor's
I don't know
question.
I don't know if my mic is working, but I was gonna say caveman probably be the best.
Yeah, you're good now, JP.
Am I working now? Okay, cool.
Yep. Well, I mean, from my point of view, AAA definitely includes graphics. I think that includes in-game and cutscenes. And I mean, just from the original trailer that was launched November 2021, I think that was definitely a good start that was able to present the game in a AAA fashion. So I think that it reaches that. I actually just did a YouTube video on what I consider AAA. Feel free to check that out. But yeah, no, I definitely think that having some decent cutscenes will help build the immersion that you need to really dive into a game and feel a part of its lore and story.
Thank you very much, Caveman. I mean, it looks like you guys are pretty much just chatting about this in the chat now.
Is there anyone who wants to come up and ask questions up here?
Yeah, come on, let Esjad.
Yeah.
Why are we sitting in chat?
Always keyboard warring. Yeah.
No, I get. Look, if you guys are at work or something, then totally sweet. But otherwise, please come up. Like the whole idea is, I know some people are like, well, this is just your opinion, and like let me just remind you once again that I said if we want to, and this is my argument to the council, right, and the IMC council, right? Not a sub council, but I did explain this to multiple councils. I think there was community, there was marketing, maybe not strategy, but I explained this to all of them. If you want to go after Web 2 people, which I think is a very bad idea, the product positioning is not that, and I don't think it's going to go down well. I think it's just going to deteriorate the revenue that ultimately goes to token holders. But if you do, then let's go to $2 and $10. That was my argument. And we sat on that for a week. And we debated and debated and debated. And I heard from multiple people that were whales in the community that were talking to me about this. And they were like, you put it at that price point, it's not even appealing to me anymore. And that freaked me out because
I was gonna say we didn't just sit on it, right? We like stress tested it. We went to Aaron, we went to Perry, we went to Wales. Like, we didn't just dwell on it, right?
That's all we do, right? We just make decisions, and everyone needs to just take it, right? Like, screw you, community. That's what we're all like. No, sorry, like, and this is my thing. Like, if you want to sit there and try and discredit me or other members as being this I don't know. I don't even want to go there. But as someone who's not fair, who's trying to dictate, like, yes, I am only one vote. I'm literally sitting here saying the council was like, we don't believe that what you're saying is correct. We want to go with something else. It wouldn't be approved. Right? These guys have been on the council with me. Annie and Blichter many a time have said, we don't agree. Right? And just those two and one other person can make it a situation where I don't get what I want. And I'm okay with that because I know that these guys go back to the community. So let's not position people in the IMC as like, you're just saying this to get your own way. I want to explain to people, we went to a point where it was literally, I've got a proposal written up where it was $2 and $10. And the more that I thought about that, the more that everyone thought about that, it's going too cheap, right? Then we went back, $5 and $20. What do we think about that? And we spoke about how that sub council shouldn't have put that out without, like, I didn't agree with putting that proposal out because we were still rigorously discussing it. It wasn't at a point where, and 6 months, 9 months ago, we had issues with that where people want to get on the front foot. They want to show the community, hey, I'm doing the best that I can. I'm working hard. I want to get this proposal in front of you. But sometimes that's not the best idea, right? Now, does that mean that everyone was in agreement when that proposal went out? No. And I've explained that we made a mistake. It should have been discussed more internally before we went out to the community, because it is very hard to get people to go. I get your point, Vetemor, of saying like, hey, we're going to make pricing more reasonable. Actually, no, we're not, right? Like that should never have been put in people's minds, in my opinion. Now that it is, we're fighting an uphill battle. And when I say we are, I am, right? And I'm one vote. And if everyone else on the council said, no, you're an idiot, you have no idea what you're talking about, this thing is positioned at Web 2 people, it needs to be cheaper, I would say, cool. I don't agree with that, but it's a democracy. No problem. So that's where I'm at.
All right, well, looks like we got Crucial up here. Crucial, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no. I mean, I appreciate you hopping me up. I got two things. One is just a wrap up point on what you guys have been talking about. I think Kieran's alluding to it a little bit here, and that is perspective on macroeconomics. So if you take a step back and you look at when NFTs, many months ago, 2021, 2020, when that exploded, pricing, if this pricing was around then, would not even come into question. It's the accepted format for NFTs. That's just the space in general. Now that it is a bit of a bear market, I think the discussion comes up of, oh, well, we got lower prices because markets are down, or we got lower prices because that's a sentiment. I don't know. I think it's just a perspective piece. If we were in a bull market right now, I don't think we would have this conversation at all. But the reason why I wanted to jump up here is actually a different question. I know that it is important to not only keep your community as fans, but also to leverage them as creatives, right? So in supporting them in trying to create value for your company, such as like side projects or pieces or content, not like creative content like YouTube videos, but maybe even other game content or all this other jazz. Is that something that you guys want to focus on more and more or support?
Are you referring, and I'm sure Kieran has, so are you referring to like third-party games being developed within the Illuvium ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just a talking point on that to see if more and more people want to try and provide further content for Illuvium.
Yeah, so it's something that we're obviously open to. We've had we try and work with the different data platforms that are out there. We've got some shared APIs that those teams can use, and we go through a vetting process to make sure that it's going to be good quality, and if we are going to associate our IP with other brands, that it's done in a way that we're happy with, and ultimately the council and the community are happy with as well. And if it supplements our offering, and if we can generate revenue from it and give value back to the token holders, then yeah, we're all for it. Where it's sort of, I wouldn't say been a struggle or like fallen down or anything like that, just a developing system that we need to build out is are these third-party integrations and games and stuff like that. Is we have set the bar really, really high. So while I think in the future there can be mini games. I think someone recommended me this little racing kart game a few days ago. I jumped in there. I think I played for like 30 minutes straight, and it was really, really fun, but also really, really simple. And their question was, imagine if they were driving around and it was, you know, Squiz and Ramfire and all these characters that we have. Would that be cool? And I think yes, it would be, but it's just it's a balancing act of effort and the return on that effort, right? Like, as you know, we're already building 3 games. We also have Beyond. We also have the Illuvidex. We also have the deck builder. We have so many things that we're building, and it's very hard to just say, here's the tools, go away. There's always a touch point there that our team needs to have to ensure that it's up to the standard, and especially when we're talking about going up to that like AAA standard. And so right now it hasn't been a focus, but I think over the next, certainly once we get to open beta, and the next sort of 2-3 years, I would love to see other developers start utilizing our IP to build out really, really fun mini games that could potentially even use our NFTs as well.
Awesome. No, I appreciate the answer. I think it's super exciting. That's it for me. I'm gonna jump out, but appreciate you having me up here.
Thanks, Crucial. You're amazing. Okay, who do we got next? We got a couple people in line now. Sigma. Bring up Sigma. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going? Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm super excited about the project. I don't know if the price point is really going to matter as much on something like Illuvitar's as it would on, say, like the actual cost per runs in terms of like fuel, because I don't know how everybody else feels about this from like an audience perspective, but like I look at this and say like what I wish Illuvium would be is more than anything like freedom, right? And I think that there's some other people about that probably think the same way, like the ability to actually enjoy like earning and having fun on a game. And I think that's like the most important thing to me. And you know, it's why I invested in this project. It's why I own, you know, a couple tier 4s, and you know, I'm really, really big on this. But at the end of the day, like that's kind of like that to me is the most important, because that's how you generate hype. Like people that are actually having a fun time and they're actually like doing well at it, and that helps to build the community. So I guess where I'm at is kind of like how is like this going to kind of flow into that from like it almost feels like Illuvitar's is a very like different aspect than kind of a lot of other things that are going on right now. So that's just kind of where my question is.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I think they're 2 different products. The games and having ownership and over time. I mean, different but similar in the fact that the games, you're going and collecting NFTs. They can go up in value. There is speculation there, and that's a cool part of it. There's obviously a marketplace which you can buy and sell those assets. Illuvitar's is similar, but I think the barrier to entry is slightly higher than what the games are going to be, and obviously we haven't decided on in-game pricing or anything like that. But I think the product positioning is more about not even that. There's no it is pay to win, right? In Illuvium Beyond, whereas the other games, there's the ability to go and find something, get lucky, and obviously that still exists in Illuvium Beyond, but the rarities are there. So if you go and sit there and spend $10,000, then you're going to go get a whole bunch of really high tiered stuff. and then those assets could potentially go up. Whereas with the games, there's a whole bunch of skill involved, there's competition, there's leaderboards based on skill level, and so I think that they're just it's more a short-term fix of that feeling of yes, you're speculating, but it's different to what the in-game experience is.
Gotcha. Yeah, cool. Thank you for taking my question. And just one other thing, I was just kind of thinking while I was up here. The other day I was actually busted out the old PlayStation and was playing Final Fantasy VII and doing the chocobo racing. I don't know if you guys ever had done that, but I thought that'd be kind of an interesting concept to kind of like implement over in Illuvium, like different types of like food that you feed your Illuviums or whatever found in like different biomes or something to make them like better. Thought I would just leave that at the door, but appreciate that you would take my question. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you coming up.
Yeah, I've already got my my golden flish ready for the Chocobo races, so definitely on board with that. Another point that you kind of spoke to that I think is worth mentioning. This is not just about Illuvitars here, right? Part of I think the reason that we're having as much discussion as we are is this is really the first time that we've had a pretty extensive, wide-ranging topic of this magnitude with this many different ideas in GovV2. And so part of this, and I'm going to ask the community for understanding on this point, is as a group of councils, we're also evaluating items that are working and that are not working with how GovV2 is actually handling itself and the councils in terms of communication, in terms of how do you as a group of 4 specialized sub-councils handle a topic that might touch on multiple. And I would say, the big advantage here is even though it's been a messy process, governance always is, the process is working where we now have sub-councils that are having the discussions with each other. We've got across the different sub-councils liaisons that are involved in talking with each other where we've got overlap. And the IMC has different voices. So to Kieran's point, if there's a discussion and, Blichter and I raise concerns about it and he sees something from the community side and I see something from the strategy side and we've aligned with our sub-councils, but then JP says, look, marketing has a different opinion on this, that's exactly what the IMC is intended to be. And, I feel like even though it's sort of we're all seeing the sausage being made here, this is a better outcome than just having a small group that meets that really tries to pull everything together. It's not as efficient. Again, I come back to that point in terms of timeliness and speed, but I do think we're going to arrive at a better outcome because we are fully vetting. I think any argument that could be made at this point has probably been made 10 times over amongst the councils. And so at the end of the day, we are going to have to, as a group, just agree to make a decision and move forward on it. But again, like it won't be without that appropriate vetting in the process that might have been the case in previous times. And I think this process is going to play out hopefully a little bit more efficiently in future cycles and in future topics. But it's going to play out hundreds of times over the next years with the various sub-councils. And part of this is figuring out, how involved should an individual sub-council be in a topic that's not really directly in their area. And we're working through that process. And those will be some of the key points that strategy puts forward for discussion with the rest of the sub-councils as we go through this epoch.
Okay, thank you, Annie. We got another question. Let's bring up... I can't see this person's name because I'm in streaming mode. So it just has 3 dots next to a B. I usually know by their picture, but I'm not sure.
Block me.
Okay. Well, welcome up.
Hey, well, listen, thank you so much. And look, can I just say, sort of, it's for me, I'm sort of just coming at this from a high level, maybe approach because I haven't had the time afforded many who have been integrated into this. It's such a nitty gritty. Kieran, I've seen you, I think, once or twice on interviews on Crypto Banter, and from the way you presented and sort of said the gamer experience is a core component, and everything else comes under that just had me. It has me as an investor. It has me now as a gamer. I'm really brutal. I'm still collecting my blueprints. I'm most of the way through there, and I love the journey. Now, as a NFT, I'm in NFT full time. I've left multiple industries, and I'm in the NFT scene full time now as a poet. But I came in as a patron of the arts in NFT and the digital art world, and so for me, just the opportunity here to even be able to question and see the way that you're working on it. One of the things that I just want to ask is in relation to the Web 2, maybe if I sort of say outreach versus the Web 3 making a statement, this is what we're doing. Like, you're taking the boxes on so many levels. Now, I've worked in the IT industry for 25 years plus in Fortune 500s and traveled the world. And the way that you bring people, they talk about increments. We talk about metaverse. So I'm very heavily invested in metaverse, and you can't bring people in big jumps. So you have to take them in increments, and Apple does this really well, the 3% movements. So my question to the floor here is the vision in how you bring that mainstream in small jumps versus how a lot of us have failed in bringing in the big jumps. Because the way I see it right now is, that onboarding, that while all of those challenges that we face, like, here's the thing, right? Like, just let me give you a case in point. Customer service in IT is a real big thing for me. I used to even work as a waiter before I broke into the industry. But here it is, like, I have no access yet. I've had to change wallets, move all my stuff over, and now I don't have overworld access yet. And I reached out to service. I reached out to the Twitter. That's okay. I know it. I work in IT, and I see the immense potential. But my question to you is that positioning and that incremental journeying and bringing people. How is that looking in your mind, or is it sort of, the sort of we go big or go home?
Yes, so really, really appreciate you coming up. Thank you for being part of the community, and it's a really good question, and it's something that I've had to adapt to over time. And my vision personally has changed a little bit from 3 years ago, where most people would know that I'm kind of go big or go home in most cases, but I think that it would be I don't think that strategy is the right one. And as much as I would love to say that the minute that our gates open, every single Web 2 gamer around the world is going to see the future of Web 3, and it's going to be the moment, and it's just going to be a barrage of people that start entering the ecosystem. I just don't think it's true, right? I just genuinely don't think that is going to happen. I think it's going to be progressive, and yeah, it's going to be incremental, where there's going to be, there needs to be multiple different genres that bring out different games that cater to different audiences. And it starts with things like having the custodial wallet solution, where you can see a crypto game and you can join it, you can start playing it, you can start collecting assets, but you don't need a wallet. You don't need that crazy onboarding process where you've got the anxiety of, oh, what even is this, and where did I just transfer things, and what if it doesn't come across? All of those little things that we've been adjusted to, we can't forget that our first time experience of going into crypto and having ownership of our assets was daunting. It really, really was. And so I've had to adjust my thought process over the last 3 years and accept that this is going to happen over time. And what we can do to really increase adoption is do exactly what we have and reduce those barriers to entry. Make sure that our pricing isn't crazy like some of the other NFT collections out there. And I'm not just talking about Illuvium Beyond. I'm talking about our 3 core games as well. But at the same time, it's a balancing act because we need to be positioned where we have longevity, and with that we need to be generating enough revenue for the gaming studio to be able to keep on developing and keep on making the games better and better and better. And so that has been one of the things that keeps me up at night. It's how do we balance that, and how do we position ourselves for it to be okay that maybe we have more active players than all of the other Web3 games because of all of the different mechanisms that we built, and because we're very much gameplay first and making it a fun experience. But what if that all of those things are done and we're still 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years away from that mind shift of the general Web 2 audience of gamers to accept NFTs? Like, how do we position ourselves to survive if that is the case? And I think we have we've slowly adapted, and we're now positioning ourselves to, again, case in point, the wallet and the onboarding process. That was never a thing, right? At the start, I was like, you make a fun game and it's just going to come across. Of course, crypto makes sense. But in the real world, that's just not the case, right? This is going to be slow adoption or slowish. And the best part about that is I'm happy to be wrong. And if we are wrong, and there is a massive flood of people that come into the Web3 space, particularly gaming, we're going to be ready for that too. But we also need to be in a position where if we only start converting, 100,000, 200,000 people per year, is that okay as well? And based on everything that we built, it is, right? Whereas if you asked me this 3 years ago, and if you back when we first started this project, it was all, we're going to convert 10, 20, 50 million gamers almost immediately. And I think that was being a little bit naive. Now we're positioned where, yes, it would be amazing, and we're set up for that. We can definitely cater for that sort of volume. But at the same time, how do we cater for 50,000 players if that's all we can convert? And so that as a platform is obviously what we're thinking about. But then at the same time, from a marketing standpoint, how do we start converting more and more people? Because that is our role at Illuvium. We're going to be the first AAA game that comes out there, and we do that through integrations with trusted brands that are in the Web 2 space. So if you look at esports organizations, they're a huge part of our marketing plan. We've got partnerships lined up with 3 of the top 10 orgs out there, and they're trusted. And we think if we position ourselves as a really fun game that their members have been exposed to, that they then go and fight that battle against the tens of millions of other gamers that are out there on different forums, and they're sitting inside Reddit, and they start bashing down that narratives that NFTs are bad. And if they start being our combatants, then we're going to position ourselves as just this really, really fun game that is trying to change the narrative. But we have all of these advocates out there that are saying, you know what, we we're playing all of the top Web 2 games, and we're now playing this Web 3 game. And guys, like, we thought what you thought, that NFTs were all shit and they weren't fun, and there's ripe with scams and all of this kind of stuff. But this isn't that, and all we can do is position ourselves like that.
I've had to face that in Web3, right? So there's VR environments that I've hung out in, and there's places and spaces where you do not mention NFT, right? So they're immersed in the potential breakthrough of the Web3 environment. They see it, they know what's happening, and it's like it gets sullied, right? Now, I don't want to take up much time if there's any more questions, but because our last person who had 2 questions, I just want to maybe put this question to you. In light of Google's Play Store, now I know you're in discussions with making the app available, and there's a lot of hurdles and challenges with getting into the mainstream of the Play Store. But in light, now if I've missed this and it's already been addressed, please forgive me. I came late when I saw this come up and I was like, oh, I got to jump in here. But in light of Google opening up, and I tweeted this out today, Google opening up their Play Store to integrate with NFT and NFT purchases. I don't know what you're able to divulge in access to that. But in light of that and the way that that's happening, is there a great on-ramp or opportunity or integration, or do you see that sort of merging into taking advantage of the existing NFT opportunities that you're leveraging into whatever way you end up negotiating that Play Store deal? Or can you speak any much to it? I understand if you can't.
Yeah.
So forgive me on that part.
No, of course. Like, obviously, we're trying to go on both iOS and Android. So the Play Store, really, I mean, it's been made official, but it's sort of been known for the last sort of 12 months that it was going to go that way, and they've certainly been a to NFT games compared to their competitors in Apple, and I think it is a big step forward for the entire space. Like, I think it's actually been there's obviously been a ton of news about it, but there aren't many games that can really take advantage of it yet because they're just not live yet, right? There's Axie, which is doing a great job, and I think they'll start picking up market share from Web 2 companies purely from being on that Web 2, being in that marketplace. But and we will certainly follow suit. But where it gets really interesting is I still think that our games, and even Illuvium Zero, is a much more in-depth, better experience, fun game than some of the other ones that are going to be joining that Play Store. And so when quality games start joining that marketplace, that's when I think we're going to see a huge amount of onboarding of Web 2. And yeah, it's a massive stepping stone. Like, it's probably been undervalued how crucial that is. And hopefully this puts the pressure on Apple to follow suit. And I think it will, but it's going to take some time, right? If we get 10 plus games that are super popular and the Play Store starts generating a ton of revenue from those games based on how many active players they have and the marketplace transactions, then I think it sort of forces Apple's hand, and Apple will do what they do so well, is they'll announce it and they'll do it in a way that has a huge marketing campaign behind it. Do it at a time where it's not going to alienate their audience, and then everyone will think, hey, Apple were the first ones to come out and do this. And so, yeah, I think it's just overall extremely good news for the space, and it's definitely something that we're going to lean into.
Oh, thank you so much, and thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. And again, just an honor for me to see a space happen like this and this opportunity at this time.
I can't. Yeah, I can't wait to see the Illuvium poem that you write.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna break it out. Okay, challenge accepted. But you have to stir me enough, so I'm paying attention. And when I see this moment, it has to come from the heart. I can do a head one; you'll know it straight away. But when I hear or see that moment that just resonates, I'll create the NFT. And you know what? I'm not even gonna. I'm just gonna gift it to you, right?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Appreciate your time. Cheers.
Cheers.
Amazing. Awesome.
I just wanted to quickly weigh in on your first question there, Block. On the council side, you mentioned basically onboarding and sort of incremental steps, and I think that's a fairly valid perspective. But I just wanted to point out that a lot of the overall holistic focus this epoch that we've talked about has been on creating systems that will help with onboarding when we have open beta going live, for example, or PvP going live. I'm not going to spoil any of the proposals that are currently being discussed, but more or less every sub-council has been ideating and thinking on ways to set up systems that will be familiar to Web 2 in as many ways as possible, and just won't have sort of a shock factor of having to learn too much when they get onboarded. Like Kieran mentioned, the custodial wallet's a big part of that, but there are other things as well that we can do within the game and within the community to help bring people up to speed, close the gaps that we need to close, and where possible to eliminate gaps of learning and knowledge to not sort of have a Web3 shock experience when people are being onboarded, hearing about Illuvium. So this epoch very much so has been and hopefully will continue to be an epoch where we're thinking about and building out some of those systems. So
Wow, that just to say that that's exactly what I wanted to hear. And I'm sure a lot are encouraged in the listenership with that, because the reason why I say that is that, quite often in business, in life, quite often you get one shot. A lot of people don't forgive. And so you rarely get a second shot. And so what I'm getting the sense of through that answer is the awareness that's within the community and then and the council of saying, okay, when we have everything ready and we are so ready to go, we're going to push that button. And the awareness with that, because quite often, like me as a technical, or when people get nerdy, I wrote back in 21. I invested in a platform, and I'm still hoping for them, and I've had good opportunity to have discussions with them, and they've reached out a few times, and it's going well. They're going in the right way. But the idea that you are aware of that opportunity and shot, and you say, okay, we're really ready to try and onboard and go mainstream and take the community that we have right now and build out and see where we go. And then you do it. And so I love hearing exactly what you've said on that. So thank you so much.
yeah, I appreciate the question. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much. I literally got lost in your voice, man. I think a lot of others
Well,
did.
maybe you might be challenged when you hear my poetry. It's a little bit more challenging, so it'll definitely challenge you on that.
All right. Yeah, no, thank you for coming up, man. And I sent you that beta code, so you're sorted out now. You can go play to your heart's content.
Cheers.
Yep. Okay. Well, we've been here for about 2 hours, but we'll get Tallulah up right now, and then we'll wrap it up after Tallulah. Hello, Tallulah.
Hello, how's everybody?
Good.
Good. Okay. Yeah, so I didn't I got to look at the Illuvitar thing a little bit this morning, but I got so much to read. My thoughts on that, I've always thought that was something for the whales because they were missing in the equation. I think that was where it got pushed at. I didn't think the price point was too bad, mainly because I would get like maybe one or more, two more, but I'm not a whale. And so I think what's best for people who are in that position of Illuvium, it's best to support them because, I mean, they have like a lot of investment in the game, in the ecosystem, and I think it's worthwhile. They're appreciated in the ecosystem in their own way. I was thinking maybe if you did something like for, say, the Web 2 audience or not the whales, in that the Illuvatars become something that you can earn or get as a reward for something, might be able to then other people might be able to like jump in and possibly get something great or not great or whatever. I don't know. But I think it's okay. I also think the whole governance structure of, perhaps you're right, like after listening, that shouldn't have been put out if it was still being discussed. And the fact that that's evolving and moving, that's good. It's probably going to take a while to get to some kind of point. Agree with Kieran that it should be standardized and not constantly changed because that's not going to be happy. And I don't think anyone will be happy about that over time. Yeah. Sorry, I just forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, that was the thing. Probably one of my questions is to do with the new leak that came out with the hunting the alluvials in the overworld, and why I play the overworld the most, and why I appreciate it. Probably does need a little bit more fun and a little bit more stuff in there. Also, don't want it to be too difficult. Like, I don't want to run in there and spend 20 minutes trying to catch an alluvial just to fight it, to earn it. So that would be one of my questions is just how's it going to be made sure that it's not going to be like as such an extensive grind that even just to catch an alluvial, you're probably going to be in there for like 4 hours just to catch one or two. The other one about onboarding for Web 2s, I hear a lot in the chat about people fight over the play to earn, play to this, play to that, and I'd actually like that just to be completely wiped from the conversation and what the game is about. And to me, it's like MMOs have their in-game currency. You know, when you're running around, you're grinding for this, you're grinding for that. You might build up your things and then sell it like to somebody else on their account or whatever it is. To me, it's just that put on the blockchain. And perhaps we need to get rid of the play to earn, play whatever, and it's just a game on the blockchain. And also what I've noticed is with the younger crowd, there's like two different kind of groups. Like there's those that play Fortnite, like maybe WoW's for a bit older people, ESO older people as well. But there's a lot of kids that play indie games and they just play multiples of them, and that's what they do. They deliberately seek out indie games because they're actually really over all the games that are there. I'm assuming they're a little bit more intellectual than, no offense to other people, but people that play Fortnite. So I see Illuvium as an indie game, and maybe that's somewhere you can market to as well. I'll be interested on your thoughts of that. And also, what about, like, we're with GameStop now. Why aren't we going around to EB Games and giving all those staff members a code to just try the game? Like, every time I go in there, I tell them about Illuvium and try and get them on. And I was thinking I'd even give them my code to have a go of it. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, but that's my kind of rambling of a little bit. And the gentleman who was up before was really lovely. And yeah, play the overworld because you'll find there's poetry in there for sure. Definitely in Brightland Stairs, there's lots of poetry in that environment.
Cool.
Yeah, that's kind of all I had to say. Sorry if that was very rambling and unclear.
No, that's all good. I will try and unpack it around the fact that I just realized that I'm old. But no,
I'm on too, don't worry.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, so first one, hunting alluvial wakes. I think everyone can appreciate, if you have ever seen me play the overworld, I definitely have a concern with making it harder to get into the encounters. I wasn't the best sharpshooter, and so that's obviously in mind of the game designers. It actually wasn't meant to be leaked. It was something that we're working on, and the guys have been testing for over a month now to see if it is going to achieve that feeling of more immersion and just more things to do, a bit more of a challenge and stuff like that. So, but we'll always keep in mind that there are out there where it can't be so hard that it becomes a chore to try and track these things down and ultimately get into the encounter phase, which I think a lot of people in the overworld are out there doing. So that would be the first thing. The second is I was more a fan of adding quests into the overworld. I think from my perspective, yes, it's harder to do something like that, and there's a lot more content that needs to go into it. But to address more that empty feeling, I feel like having some NPCs and having some things to do, like go and capture 5 fire alluvials and then bring them back to me, and I will turn them into an essence or a substance or something like that, and then collect 3 substances and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That seems to me like it would make it feel less empty. But that sort of thing is coming. It's something that the guys had spoken about for a couple of years now, and so it might be that we end up getting both by the time open beta comes, but possibly not in terms of the quest. But I think if we get through the testing phase and the community feedback on the wake hunting is really, really good, then yeah, that will definitely be implemented. I don't know if your second part really had a question, so I'm just going to go to your third part, which was giving a GameStop and I think you referenced EB Games. Like, for those who don't know, that's like a similar type of video game store that's brick and mortar, and giving them beta codes and saying, just, hey, sign up to you bought a game from us, here's a beta code to Illuvium. The biggest reason that we haven't looked at that is that we're still in private beta. It's the same reason why we don't say, hey, anyone can sign up to the beta. We don't necessarily want millions of people playing the private beta. Once we get to a stage where the back end is comfortable, that's when we'll open it up and we'll say, open beta, anyone can join, no restrictions. And that's at the point where we can start looking at integrations with physical stores. Not saying that we will. It is definitely an idea that we've discussed, and we have also discussed it with GameStop as well. But yeah, that's the blocker to that, and that will become unblocked once we get to open beta. If there was another question in there, please let me know. But I think I addressed them.
I don't think there was. Sorry. I think it was just opinion. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I think Simple Quest would be great too. Like, I mean, there's those simple games. They're just calm games. I can't remember what it's called, but you just float around and you just increase the length of your scarf and go and unpack this little story of the adventures of where the people were from or something. And it's really calming and it's really beautiful. And I think our minds are quite simple. Like, we don't need too much to catch on to in order to feel like we're doing something and achieving something. So that's really cool. And yeah, that's good. I agree. Yeah, we don't want lots of people playing the game and then, like we already have, like, why isn't this here and why isn't that here kind of stuff. So yeah.
And to touch on a couple other things, Tallulah, just from the game design, at least from Ben and the Game Council, I think they're targeting a 30-minute to an hour run is what, depending on play testing, but that's what one of the main targets for design is, at least as of now. And then passing out those beta keys, I think Block was mentioning it earlier. Sometimes we're only going to have one chance to collect some of these people. And then do we want to give it to them right now, or maybe when it's closer in a more polished state? That way we have a higher chance of hooking them later on. At least that's the way I look at it. And obviously that's in Kieran and the marketing's pool, but just my thoughts on it.
Cool. And what about using Illuvium Beyond as rewards to players in game?
That was your other question, wasn't it?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
What was
To
it? What was the question?
as
Oh,
a way to satisfy the audience that's not whales for Illuvatars, what about offering them as rewards for some kind of, I don't know, what you would do? You'd catch a certain amount, or you'd play a certain amount of time, or whatever. Using them as some kind of reward to people that play.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, so the trouble there is we don't want to dilute the Illuvium Beyond players. So it's something that we can do, and we've what we did in Wave 1, and we didn't end up actually using all of the discs that the council approved us for marketing use, but we could certainly portion off an amount for in-game rewards. I'm definitely not ruling it out, but we'd have to be very specific before the start of the wave to let people know how many first of all, how many discs are being minted for marketing purposes, and then we could later reveal, hey, we're actually going to put 50% of those discs into in-game rewards as like a little carrot to get people to start playing Illuvium Beyond. I actually think that's quite a cool idea. So yeah, not ruling it out, but yeah, we haven't investigated that too much, but it's definitely possible.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I agree. It would have to be hard. Like, you'd have to be like not easy to achieve. Definitely, but yeah, cool. Thanks.
Alrighty. Awesome, Tallulah. Thank you very much. All right. Well, I think we can probably wrap it up there. We're almost about 2.5 hours. You guys want to share any closing thoughts before we go? The next steps on this Illuvitar's proposal, I'm guessing we'll go back and you guys will talk about it.
Yeah, so just, in conclusion, we really appreciate everyone's feedback, and this, we do care what the community has to say about it. We I think it's going to be a challenge to have like a unanimous position in any direction that we go, but it's clear that the community thinks that it's a miss as it currently sits, and we'll continue to take it back and try to find middle ground that makes sense. And appreciate the support that you guys have provided to us. There has been, as has been alluded to here, many meetings, many hours has been spent internally discussing this. So, I am confident in the system, and I think GovV2 is working. We just have to find that middle ground that works for the majority. So, appreciate the support, and we'll be continuing to take a closer look at it.
Awesome. Annie, Caveman, Kieran, you guys good? If so, we'll wrap it up here.
Yeah, I'm all good. Thanks for coming on, guys. Appreciate it.